And if you take Bernard Madoff in 2008, it's a recent conspiracy, he told people, you give me your money, and I'm going to give you a lot of money. Okay, that was the idea. And he always said, I'm a great investor. But what he really did, he just, faked everything. It was a Ponzi scheme. He took the money from the new investors and paid interest to the others, but he had no real investment. And the lady who did all, the fake reports was Annette Bongiorno. Somebody says that's a hell of a secretary because she, copied everything and mixed it. But there you go. I mean, it was a conspiracy between Madoff and Bongiorno. And it doesn't make sense to say there are no conspiracies. The question is, on 9/11, how many people were involved? If it's just one person, you can't have a conspiracy. But if you assume that it was just one person who, with the first plane, flew into the Twin Tower and then walked down and then took a second plane and flew into the second tower, it's not possible. One person cannot do it. So you have at least two persons involved. And that means, from a scientific perspective, that it is a conspiracy. The question is, who are the conspirators? It can be the group of Muslims, then it's the surprise theory, or it can be somebody else. And that's really what you have to look at. In the detailed investigation of 9/11, the debate has always focused on the Twin Towers. These are the Twin Towers. Everybody has seen a plane fly in the building, then this exploded, and the second fly in that building, and then these buildings went down. So for most people, 9/11 is plane, building, building. That's the essence. But there's a third building which collapsed on that day. When people saw the Twin Towers, they were in shock, okay? That's the important thing. Terror means fear. As you can see, they actually watched the Twin Towers being hit. There's a huge fear effect. But if you look at the whole World Trade Center complex, you see there's the Twin Tower these are the Twin Towers, WTC-1, WTC, they were hit by a plane and they went down. But here's the third tower, and it was not hit by a plane. But it went down on 9/11. In 7 seconds. So obviously, people then ask, what does the 9/11 Commission report say about WT7? Because that's a crucial question. How do they explain the collapse of a building which has not been hit by a plane? They don't even mention the building. Okay? And that's really a very serious problem. I mean, if the 9/11 Commission report doesn't get the number of buildings right, yeah, you're laughing, but it's serious, It's very serious. The activation of NATO is based on the 9/11 Commission report. The surprise theory is based on the 9/11 Commission report. But the 9/11 Commission report doesn't get the number of buildings right. So WT7 before 9/11 and after 9/11. Flat. If you look at the different buildings, you see these are the Twin Towers. They're much higher, and that's WT7. It's smaller. It's not that high. And the New York Times at the time said, that's really a mystery. WT7 is a mystery. They said, until now, the collapse of 7 World Trade Center has stood as one of the outstanding mysteries of the September 11 attack. And since before then, no modern steel-reinforced high-rise in the United States had ever collapsed in a fire. And that's true for the entire world. They don't go down in a fire. But the Bush administration claimed that this fire brought the building down. Now, WT7, to my personal understanding, is the most important question in the whole 9/11 debate. And it's being discussed across the globe. I'm not sure whether you surf the internet a lot, but maybe if you do, you've maybe been on this webpage recently. That's a Japanese parliamentarian. His name is Yukihisa Fujita. And he presented in the Japanese parliament the collapse of WT7. That was in 2008. Showed everybody in the Japanese parliament that WT7 collapsed. And people were surprised because most parliamentarians in Japan didn't know it. But here we're back to the fact that 9/11 happens in a period where we have the internet, where everybody has YouTube, where everybody has laptops, where everybody has cameras and is filming. This is a completely different framework. You have to be aware of this information revolution which is taking place. And as we are here in Switzerland, I want to bring you a building which is very high so you can compare it to the World Trade Center. Here in Switzerland, we don't have high buildings. We all know that. But the highest building is now in Zurich. They just finished it. It's called the Prime Tower. It's 135 meters high. Now realize that the World Trade Center 7 is 170 meters high. So it's higher than the Prime Tower. And for us in Switzerland, that's quite a thing. Okay? So that's why we can never say WT7 is just a minor issue. It would be the biggest building in Switzerland. So what I did is I went, when I was working at the Center for Security Studies at the ETH in Zurich, I went to other professors and asked them, how does that building come down? And then one colleague said, I think there's a high probability that WT7 has been brought down by controlled demolition. So we sit at the ETH, and I say, no, there's no controlled demolition on 9/11, because that would take weeks to prepare it. And nobody said bin Laden blew up a building through controlled demolition. And then the other professor said, well, I don't know, maybe there's a plane that hit WT7 and you haven't heard about it. And I said, no, I know that. There's not. Yeah, you're laughing, but this is the sort of level of debate that is going on behind the scenes. And then nobody really knows what happened. What we now have is a new web page in Switzerland. It's just been online for a few weeks. It's called 9/11 untersuchen, investigate 9/11. And a few people come forward. I've also signed it. And it basically is a petition to say we need more data. We need more data. Too many things are unclear. In 2002, we had a report by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. It was called World Trade Center Building Performance Studies. And the FEMA said, the specifics of the fires in WT7 and how they caused the building to collapse remain unknown. Okay? So they said, yes, there was a fire, but we don't know how the fire could bring the building down. In the same report, you have a list of the tenants who were in the World Trade Center number 7, because people were interested. Who was in that building? And that list shows you that you had on floor 25, the Department of Defense and the Central Intelligence Agency. So this was a high security building. It was part of the defense community. And those who distrust the Bush administration and those who think it was MIHOP, 9/11 was MIHOP, they come to me and say, it's very clear, it was all done from WT7, that was the control room for 9/11, and they just blew it up. And I say, do you really believe that? And I say, yes. And I say, okay, I take a note, now look at it. And then I go home and I look at the data and I say, I don't know who was in that building on that day and what they did, but I know that the building collapsed. So what I'm saying is that we need more investigation on why it collapsed. The National Institute for Standards and Technology said in a report published in 2008 that WT7 collapsed because of fires. It did not collapse from explosives. He explicitly said it did not collapse because of explosives. Why did he say that? Because at the time, and still today, many people say that was brought down by controlled demolition. And that is now the argument, either fire or either controlled demolition. And that is very, very difficult to argue what the truth is. Because we really need the iron beams, but we don't have them. The iron frame of the building, that would help. But, it has been recycled. There's no access to this primary data. Now, Richard Gage comes forward and says, the NIST report, okay, that's the NIST report, published in 2008. Now, Richard Gage is a professor, he's an architect, and he's founded the movement Architects for 9/11 Truth and Engineers. So there's 1,500 architects in the US who say, we don't believe the story. And you have to understand, people sometimes come to me and say, well, we heard the Bush version and then we heard nothing. If somebody has doubts, he would have raised his voice. We don't hear from Richard Gage in the Swiss newspaper. But if you don't hear it, then it's a question of how good is your information structure, your newspaper, your television, whatever. And it's not the point that nobody is saying anything. It's just it doesn't reach you. So the interesting question is really, we should ask the man who owned the World Trade Center. We should ask him what happened on that day. And the man is Larry Silverstein. He leased the World Trade Center on July 24, 2001, just shortly before the attacks. Then he signed insurance policies with 24 insurance companies for a total of $3.5 billion. And then he received $4.5 billion after WT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's the whole thing, was destroyed. So he's really the man to ask. He's in the middle of all this. And he said this on television, I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life, maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and we watched the building collapse. So really here the argument is, what did he mean with to pull it? Did he mean to bring it down with controlled demolition, or did he mean something else? So later he said, no, I didn't mean controlled demolition. I meant to pull the firemen out of the building. But then semantics, professors for linguistics came and said, it never refers to people. So you have a huge debate. Yeah, you're now smiling, but it's really complicated. If you go into the detail, you realize 9/11 investigation is complicated. We have now firemen who say there were explosives.
What happened?
There was an explosion. We was in the lobby, and the third explosion, the whole lobby collapsed on us.
What was it like? What was it like?
Horrible. The whole building just collapsed on us inside the lobby.
Was that a secondary explosion?
Yes, it was.
That was the planet.
Yeah, definitely a secondary explosion. Because we was inside waiting to go upstairs, and on the way upstairs, the whole fucking plane blew, and it just collapsed on everybody inside the lobby.
Similar to the first tower coming down, secondary.
I don't know about the first one, but I know the second one was terrible. Then there was a third one too after that one.
There's an explosion after that.
That's right. Everybody was inside the building, waiting to go upstairs, and they just let loose. Everything just let loose inside the building.
So what you tell me is that there was a plane or whatever hit the building, then a secondary explosion.
It was like 3 explosions after that. We came in after the fire. We came when the fire was going on already. We was in the staging area inside the building, waiting to go upstairs. Then it exploded. Then the whole lobby collapsed on the lobby inside.
And is this mayhem after that?
Everybody tried to make their way out. A lot of people was trapped inside and everything.
In the Brooklyn Navy Yard across from Brooklyn. We watched the first explosion. As we're watching the buildings, I saw a black, very large airplane fly right into the second building. Came out of the south, right in front of our eyes. Just, it was so surreal, like a movie set. We were in the building for the third one collapse, and I was on this drive here for the other one.
People don't understand. There may be more. Any one of these fucking buildings can blow up. This ain't done yet.
How does this?
This is on the top of this. This couldn't be no worse than this. Couldn't be nothing no more worse than this. You're in the building trying to help people, and it's exploding on you inside the building. So
these people come forward and say, yes, there were explosives. Bang, bang. We don't know what to do with it.